Everybody, it's Cinnamon Cooney, your Art Sherpa, and today I'm going to be showing you how to paint this really adorable, I bet you didn't know it was this small, loose abstract of poppies. I'm going to explain everything about how this is made step by step so that you can create this at home. I'm going to tell you the materials, I'm going to tell you the brush strokes, I'm going to demo how everything is done. You do what I do, and you're going to get a much better painting than you would even imagine. On the mic is my husband, John.
Hey guys.
And he's going to be tracking me with all of our cameras so you can see all of that up close painting action so you can do it at home. But he does another thing. He also reads the chat, keeps track of what's going on for you guys in the live stream. So if you have a question, if you write it in all caps, I promise it's not yelling. It's just how we do it in the live. Then either he or the moderators may catch it. And the moderators, if you don't know, are the little people with the wrenches. They have little wrenches next to their name. They might know the link to the video you're looking for or already know like something that I have said about that art material. And then they also pass those to John. So that's how that all works. If you've never been here before, and if you've never been here before, welcome. And if you're coming back to another live stream, it is good to see you again. And if you're here on the replay, gosh, we missed you. How is everybody doing today?
Oh, so good. Everybody's really having a good time. And they love your hair today.
You know what? Usually I'm kind of like, compliments are hard for me, but I'm kind of really loving the hair today
You're
too.
digging the hair today. It looks
This is
good.
like one of those rare moments where the hair in my head is the hair on my head.
Well, it turned out good.
It did. It did. I'm now all of a sudden I'm like, I'm loving this. So I might be peacocking a little bit today. A little chuffed up.
Well, you have your hair's up. So. But today we're going to be...
We're going to just have some fun.
Yeah, playing with color and...
Now, I have an artist surface here. I have something called gesso board. This is by Ampersand. That's just what I'm painting on today. I've demoed many different painting surfaces. I do love this one though, but it's not required for you to do the painting. It's just a good product for you guys to know about in your head. On this, I have some wishes that I put on with watercolor pencils so that they'll blend into the paint. We have a wish from Helena, who is wishing for people who are living with depression to hold on and recognize that things are going to get better, that they're going to be okay, and there's help out there for them. And I think that's a beautiful wish. Linda, to have her husband be okay. They're going through a diagnosis of early onset dementia. And I just want to send a lot of love to everyone out there who has family members who are dealing with dementia and who are themselves dealing with dementia. I think it's an incredibly cruel illness. And I'm really hoping that they find a better treatment and a cure really soon. Susan just needs a period of goodness and easiness after a very long struggle just in life. She just likes things to get a lot easier. And then Jennifer is looking for some part-time work, and she'd like a job that not only resolves her financial issues, but also her heart issues as well. And I'm wishing that for her. Let's look at the paint. So here I have a cadmium red. I have cadmium yellow. I have Prussian blue, titanium white, Mars black, phthalo blue, and phthalo green. And remember, guys, these colors are real common to a lot of lines. So it doesn't just have to be expensive professional lines have that. If you're in our Facebook group, there's a file that has all the colors I recommend, and it shows all the companies that carry them. And they literally are $2 to $40 in price range on colors. So don't feel like you're just trapped. And I have my recommended brands of paint that I recommend there. Are you doing good? You ready?
I am. I'm making little adjustments as we go so that we have everything fitting.
All right. Well, the first fun part of this is we're going to do the bright poppy orange background. I'm going to get some yellow out with my palette knife. Now, remember, it takes less red to color the yellow. So that's why I pull my yellow out first and add my red slowly. And I'm just going to, in a very fun and messy way, create this background, right? And this is going to peek through our painting as we paint and give us lots of little bits of loose, abstracty excitement, which I do super love. So you can see I'm adding the red slowly, and that way it's not...
It's powerful red.
It's such a powerful red that it's a good idea to add it in little bits and just be good with it. I'm going to go ahead and just even smear this off here, because why waste any of this yummy goodness? I'm going to take my number 30 bright. I'm choosing this brush simply because it's big. That's why I'm picking it right now. It's a big brush that will do short work of my canvas. And I just need to paint the whole background. And you can be super expressive and messy and just not tight about it. You can back up the handle of your brush if you want to paint way back. You can do that. This brush is a little heavy to do that with.
I know you. You like big brushes.
I like big brushing, I cannot lie. I'm really sorry. Don't content ID me or critique my singing because I already know it's not good.
Although, if you want to come sing with us in the studio, we would welcome all original creators of content to come join us. So, Sir Mix-a-Lot, if you find yourself a hankering for painting, we welcome you to the studio.
That would be so weird.
If you like, do I call
do.
you Sir or Mr. Mix-a-Lot?
I'm gonna call him whatever he asks. To be real honest, that's what I go with. Whatever people ask. So you can see I just covering the whole surface. Wasn't that fun? That was just loose. It was just expressive. You don't have to worry about if it's streaky or any of that stuff. And you know what? I realized that I'm missing two important things: my hair dryer and my cloth.
Oh, your hair dryer
Don't go
is
anywhere.
stashed.
It is stashed.
Yeah, I stashed it.
I need a cloth to dry off my brushes because you don't want to leave them wet. You don't want to leave them in water ever because that just ruins them. Hair dryer's on the floor, so until it comes back, I'm going to just use my handy dandy fan here. Isn't that nice? There it is. When John gets back to turn off my sound, I'll turn it on.
Now I'm back. So she's going to dry that off. And let's see if I can go. Boop, there it goes. So yeah, if you're using, if you're trying to dry yours at home, it's best to use just a fan like the little one she had in her hand there, because heat isn't really good for your painting. And it's just the air moving over the surface, which does most of it. Heat can accelerate the drying, but it's not good for the paint. So keep in mind that you're best off using just the air, and because heat can cause shrinkage or color discoloration, mostly on student paints. You're not going to see that on your pro paints, but it is she's just putting some orange in there to cover up those little white spots. So. But yeah, it's a really good idea to make sure that you keep the heat down. That's not good for your brushes. And thank you guys. Man, wow, there's a lot of you guys. So
Whew.
I was noticing there's a lot of folks here.
Is there a lot of folks here? That's
folks.
because they know they can do this.
They can do this.
Now, most of this painting I'm going to do with this brush, and I might even normally do it with a bigger and less sharp brush, but I recognize as new students, there is a certain comfort to brush with a good edge. The benefit of this particular brush, and this painting doesn't have to be done with this brush, but the reason I chose it is this Cambridge Bright, which is a number 10, is fairly big. It's about an inch wide and has a mix of bristles and synthetic filaments. Now, in acrylic painting, there's an issue that can happen called foaming. It doesn't really show up a lot unless you get into goat hair or you get into a lot of natural hairs. And so the nice thing about these synthetic filaments is they prevent the bristles from over softening and making your brush all mushy and making your paint all foamy. That's the whole reason why we do that. Now the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to very loosely create a ground space. So I'm going to just load right up with my Prussian blue. And I'm going to come right across the bottom, what is that, about an inch, 2 inches or so. Pretty loose definition of where it is. Maybe let's give it a full 2 inches. Let's give it a lot of nice ground. And I'm not like particularly neat or tidy with this.
Oh.
And the reason I'm not neat or tidy, and I'm going to even back up a little bit from my usual space. I'm going to go across, just take my brush across. This is where that long handle is kind of nice. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to just go back and forth a little bit, very loosely with this ground. See how it's very loose?
I do.
So loose.
It's extraordinarily loose.
Is your goose? How loose is your goose?
Not that loose.
Not that loose? I'm
Loose
going to
enough.
leave some of this orange peeking through because that's some of the beauty of that orange. Now I'm going to get a little more of this awesome blue. And I'm going to just real quick sort of sketch in my little vase. Now, I did give you guys a traceable. It's in the description below, as are all the materials and the brushes that I'm using. But the nice thing about this is that you have a traceable if you're feeling very nervous. What I would say is go for it. Get your brush, have the paint kind of focused at the end, and you're going to just do a nice little curve. That's just one side of your perfectly perfect little vase, because you're not worried about like making the most perfect vase in the world, just your vase.
It just has to be vase-ish.
It just has to be vase. So I'm going to come right here, right? I'm going to go right there, and I'm going to come right here, and I'm going to add a little more of my vase shape, like you do, which is super fun. I do enjoy it. And I'm going to go a little bit kind of across here. I know where this is going to be. So I kind of know where now that is. So see, it's just a straight line and 2 parentheses. For those of you that fear painting, stop and process that for a minute. Straight line and 2 parentheses. You probably covered that in some point in your life, right? Straight lines and parentheses, not that bad. I'm going to go ahead and just put a bunch of the red on my brush. I haven't rinsed it out. And it's going to make a nice kind of darkened cat. It's almost a brick color. And I'm going to have a little bit of fun here. I'm going to come into my little glass vase here and pull down a little color and maybe a little bit there, because why not? Dipping in my water, just the tip of my bristles, just the tip of these little filaments and bristles here. And then I want you guys to put a little squiggle right here. Go squiggle to the left, and squiggle upwards and a little bit to the left. All right, and come across here, come over a little bit. You're kind of working at the shapes. Let's say that there's a nice little flower here, right? That's a little flower. And we know it's a little flower, it's a little round. You're like, wait, what happened? But just trust me. We're going to keep working this nice red right here. You know, just kind of filling it in and kind of covering the shape of our composition, right? Just the overall mass of the florals. You know, maybe there's a little flower right here. And there's one here. I actually how I designed this when I was trying to create this was I took my reference of these poppies in a vase and I just didn't let myself spend any time tightening up. I have a tendency to want to over tighten as an artist. We all have things that we kind of struggle with and we deal with, and mine is like I tend to be like, I want to tighten up, I want to tighten up, I want to get rigid and all involved in some little element. And sometimes I forget to back up and just let go. So this is a really good way to remind yourself that paintings can be just fantastic and free-spirited. So we've got a little bump here and a little misshapen bump here and a little bump here. Notice it's not all uniform and they're not making the same pattern. Let's put one right here. And there could be something happening out here, couldn't there? Maybe somebody's down that way, like facing that way. And there's a lot of little orange sticking out. Now I'm going to rinse this out super thoroughly because orange is about to gray the color that I'm about to put everywhere. And what's nice about this, if you think about it, these reds and oranges, they are on what end of the color wheel? From the color blue. So if we were to talk about contrasting colors when we have color wheels, we would talk about colors that live on the opposite end of the color wheel, like purple and yellow, and blue and orange, right?
Yeah.
And red and green. Super fun stuff. And we have lots of contrasting little events happening here. And whenever you put colors on opposite ends of the color wheel, you can do 2 things. You can create big pops of drama where you do them really bright, or you can use those 2 colors with each other to neutralize, gray out, and minimize the vibrancy of those colors, creating incredible, subtle color adventures. That's why this is fun. Now I'm going to take the phthalo blue and the phthalo green, I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to mix almost a 1-to-1 mixture. 1 part green, 1 part blue. That is a super fun base for my phthalo turquoise. I'm going to wipe this off, and I'm going to get my brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of my white, I'm going to load it all up into my brush, and you can see I'm pulling it out, and I flip back and forth, and I'm going to get a little bit of this blue. And I don't want the lightest blue in the world, but I do want a lighter blue, and I'm going to just very loosely, and that when I say loosely or painterly, I'm not only just like doing kind of scrubby, scruffly little brush strokes. Come on, shake your little body out. I'm not only doing that, shake your little body out, but I am not hiding what is making my work. I'm showing the paint.
What do you mean?
Oh, you can see some of the foaming happening right there. See those little bubbles?
Hold on.
So when you have natural filaments and water in your brush, that's how foaming happens. Now this is light enough where it's going to go away, but if you had any more water or you had like a goat hair, you would see a lot more of it. Doesn't mean goat hair isn't great. Goat hair is, well, not for the goat, actually. I'll be real honest. The goat likes hair. But as a practical brush, it's okay. So I'm coming into some of the little spaces with my blue. See, I'm coming in here. A couple little spaces with my blue. Come around here. And I will just paint this very loosely, come across the top, like you do. So here we go. Isn't that fun? And we're letting some of that orange, some of that expressiveness peek out, showing our brush strokes, showing our painting expression. This would be a very good, accurate depiction of what we like to call a hot mess. Because it's still beautiful. We're not trying to be neat. We're not trying to be tidy. I'm going to come right up to the edges of these little orange spaces. I'm on the edge of my bristles. I move back my brush. If I have a tendency to over tighten, the further back I get from my brush and my canvas, the more it'll help me. I'm going to come across here and just wiggle this all around. Coming down here. There's some great stuff in the description and in the iCards for you guys to check out to learn more about this. So hopefully you guys will appreciate that.
Yeah, I think so.
So I'm going to just come right in here.
Now, Taffy was asking, why not put the blue on before the red?
Why not put the blue on before the red?
The orange.
Before all the orange? Well, when you use these colors in this way, you create these little elements of peek through. If you guys have ever looked at the work of Carol Marine or Angela Mouton or Drema Parrish, and this particular one is a shout out to Bob Burridge, what you're going to see is that they use color theory and this layering of colors where they create a excitement pop. In our own community, Kelly Joyce Floyd is really infamous for doing this. So they pick an underpainting that's almost a contrast. It becomes the focal color, becomes the main color, and then they use these contrasts as a pop of color to add drama. And so as this orange pops out, it creates a bunch of drama. Angela Mouton, she really loves to use like a quinacridone underneath everything. She just hits it all with a quinacridone and starts popping up those high green turquoises to pop that color. So this is just a really fun thing that you can do in color theory. And if you check the iCard, there's a really cool video on why you might start with orange that is really awesome that I think you should follow out.
All right.
That's just
pretty good.
Yeah, it's just super fun. And now I'm not even going to be done because I have to layer it, right? We don't want to have it be messy. We've got to still make it complete. But inside my little vase here, I need to have color. So I'm going to get my dark turquoise right here. And I think I'm going to take some of this at first right here. And I'm going to very loosely make a dark area right here in this corner under these flowers, right? You go there, loosely out into the space. And then I'm going to come into my little vase area. And I'm going to definitely work down here. Coming across. I'm going to make a dark value here because in the glass, that's where the dark shadows were. And I still have to show all my light values and all the stuff that's happening. I don't get to just quit doing that. I have to still represent those things. Even if I'm painting loosely. So I can come in the middle and here's more of the space that's got that bright aqua blue. I'm going to cross here. You can bring it down. And you can see I'm going stroke across, and up. I'm doing big blocky strokes, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
Super fun stuff. Now I can go right into my fabulous Prussian blue with this. And I can come right across here. And even down here, there's a dark value you can put there. Let's get a little more of our Prussian and come right here around this outer edge. That's really fun. Let's keep that going. So you can see I've focused it here. I'm being real loose, just on the edge of these bristles. You can see me go wiggle there and a pull down and come across and pull down. So we're just building that up. Now, if I want to give it some pop, I'm going to get a lot of white, loosely mixed. I'm going to come over to this far side and very carefully pull that down in a little corner. Make a little line across. Go ahead and add this right here. So we're just starting to talk about our glass. A little bit of that reflection here in this very loose and open way. So you pull it down, little stroke, pull it across. What I'm careful to avoid is really getting in it, and the big brush helps me do that. Already it's got a lot going on, doesn't
It
it?
really does.
I like to rinse out thoroughly. Now go ahead and grab some of your Just Prussian, right? And you're going to come underneath here and start talking about a very deep value. I'm going to come behind this object here and underneath it. And I'm still going to come out because this would still cast a shadow on my surface, wouldn't it? Solid objects still break up light.
Oh,
I'm going to add just a
does
smidge of white to my Prussian. And I'm going to come around a couple of places loosely with this lighter value. See how we're doing? Not too much, but just to show that the table's got some other stuff afoot.
Stephanie is saying that she has to actually really work to keep her brush to hold the brush farther back.
It's not something that initially you feel comfortable with. The example I gave you in the iCard, that particular artist will tape brushes together like Monet did. Just a whole weird line of brushes to get back. But it's fun. And that's what you need in your life, is some fun. Trust me on that. All right, so let's add another little layer to our background. I'm going to get a little of my turquoise on my brush. I'm going to come into my brighter blues by adding a lot more white. You can see I'm working that through. And I'm finding a shade or a value that's significantly lighter than what I've already put up. And I'm going to go ahead and come around and add some lighter values to the background, all around these sort of little flowers. But these still actually are letting the blue peek through. You can see I'm using big strokes. I'm back on the brush. Coming here, around. Maybe a little bit right there somehow peeks down. Just come through that. That's pretty fun. Oh, we're getting some values now. Load up a little more color. Come around here. And I think that's the fun thing, is to find these values, find these spaces, and just fill them in and be open about it. Realize that it's the totality of the composition that pulls us in and attracts us. And I have to tell you, if you've ever looked at Angela Mouton's birds, right? It's not like she's like Audubonning out those birds, is she? Not by any means. But she's still one of my very favorite wildlife painter, because I think she says more in 3 or 4 strokes about a bird than sometimes a highly regimented artist can say in a wildlife painting, if that makes sense. I just love how she talks about birds on
Yeah,
her paintings.
totally understand.
You guys can Google her. She's a popular artist among all of us. I'm going to come and add just one more even lighter value to talk about the light sources here. All right, so now we're still talking about these light sources that are happening. Corner, and you can see it just creates that sort of space. So now we've got this really great background. Now, next thing I can do is I can grab some, like phthalo blue and just a little bit of white, because phthalo blue is its own sort of like color, isn't it? I can add a little bit of it there. And even some here. I'm going to get my pure phthalo, but I've got a little white on my brush. I'm going to make sure that I pop a little bits of these around to sort of show that this is happening here. There we go. Don't want to, not really sure what we're saying. We're saying shadow there. And you can grab a little bit of your green and even a smidge of your white and your yellow. See how we're doing? So we've loosely mixed those on the brush and we haven't rinsed out. You can come right here and we'll pull down some reflection. Or a little reflection, pulling that down. Come around. And a little pop right there. And a little bit of color there. Entertaining stuff. Now, while this is all having a sit, I am going to, you don't have to, and traditionally you wouldn't even change the brush, but sometimes when you're very new to painting, the big brush can be overwhelming. So what I'd say is, if you're feeling very confident, don't change the brush. If you're not, what you do is you would change the brush. I'm going to get a little bit of my water on this number for Cambridge. I'm going to come here and I'm going to just make sure that I anchor this with the black. So this is the deep reflection that I might be seeing in my painting. And I liked pulling this into the vase simply because I knew I was going to put the black in the center of the poppies. And I didn't want to have it only in one location on the painting. And bring that around. And I'm going to add some of those dark values in here into the glass, because glass actually can get some very dark values afoot. All right. And we can even pull a little bit of that out, just a couple of places. You don't want to get too crazy with it because you don't want to muddy up your painting. I like to get most of the vase done so I can layer the flowers over it. So that's why we do that. I've rinsed out my brush. I'm going to just load up a little bit of the pure white. And let's come across the top. Now on the rim of many glasses, you'll find that there's this highlight reflection. So even if I'm painting abstractly, I still want to capture some of those events. Right? I still want to capture them. I'm going to come across and then down. Now, one challenge I might like to extend to you, if you feel up for challenges or you enjoy those, is to, after you try this, maybe a couple of times, see if you can't do this with another floral composition that you have. That could be fun. I've got some more of these style paintings coming up, so if you want to make sure that you've got that tutorial space, come over to the right-hand side. I'm going to put a little reflection. And then another little one down. And then just right here, I'm going to get a little more paint. And I'm going to come out this outside here, the outside of the glass, as it might have a reflection. And that's just something to, you know, when you're places you pay attention to what's happening in reflections, grab a little of your just yellow and come here and add some space of that might have pulled into the glass. And there we go. We've got a very reflective little glass space, don't we? I'm going to change this a little bit because of the size. And looking at this, because of this, I'm also probably going to grab a little bit of my orange and just make sure a little bit is still here. Because everything that's around the glass tends to be in glass, so you don't want to lose that. There we go. Now we've, that's so much better. Let me get back into my big brush for the minute because I do enjoy it. And the next thing you want to do is start painting out or focusing out on some of the greenery and then some of the flowers, because it's nice to layer those together. To do the greenery, I like to take my phthalo green, just all on my brush, and grab a little bit of my yellow and just loosely mix them together. And I want a pretty bright color, so I'm going to make sure I've got nice bits of yellow. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to just press in and mark that out. I'm going to come right into some space here, and I'm going to find a couple little spots here and there to talk about some foliage. Let's say that there's some loose greenery that comes this way, right? Because that can happen. I also think it tends to tuck out, so make sure you've got the tucking out. Now let's put some up here. I'm going to just go ahead and say, all right, there's some greenery right here in the corner. That's a little wiggle on the corner of my brush, and I press and I press. See, they're not, John's going to get real close, and you're going to see that it is in the total of the composition that it comes together. It's not in each individual brush stroke. So you got to back up from your work. You got to see how you can enjoy it. Make a little, yeah, I'm just putting little bits of hidden greenery that's peeking out. And I think it might be nice to go into some darker green. I'll make sure that's there. And maybe I'll add some of that here. I'll be back with a little bit more, but I want to get my flowers sort of, and oh, isn't it pretty? How's everybody doing? Let's take a breath because I'm kind of cooking along real fast. and let everybody, is there any questions that are percolating while I sip my coffee and before I put in my flowers and sign it?
I will come over here and check it out. My head is, as you know, I've got a really sneezy stuff here. So, um, Cindy was asking, she was wondering if this style of painting can be done in watercolor.
Yes. Yes. Um, there are challenges to watercolors that you don't have in acrylic in that, we have easily found hard edges, and as a watercolorist, you'll be dealing with those edges softening if they run in wet areas or where they're dry, and you absolutely can do it. And I think the artists that do these loose expressive watercolors, um, there's a book, I think it's the urban sketch artist. I'll post it up after. Fantastic, shows that sort of loose expressive painting in watercolor, and you'll go, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing, and you'll be like, oh, it's a thing, it's totally a thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. Okay.
And Prussian blue? If can you make Prussian blue if you don't have it?
If you don't have Prussian blue, you can add a little black to your phthalo blue, but what you really get is Payne's gray. It will lose that blue color, and like I said, there's a lot. Go out and find an indigo blue. Go out and find a deep midnight blue. If you cannot find Prussian blue, I don't, you can get it from, a less expensive paint line, but what you want is a deep, 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 rich blue, because your phthalo blue is so vibrant and so like in your face that you need a rich but deep blue to push things back. That's my 2 cents on that. But you could add black to phthalo blue, but you're essentially going to get a version of Payne's gray.
I totally get that. I'm sneezing over here, so I'm like, achoo!
Are we ready to get back in the flowers?
All I do is push buttons and sneeze today.
I'm going to put out my cad. Now, this is my secret weapon for this particular painting. Is cadmium red is just so vibrant and so amazing that it gives me a lot of great experience. And I'm going to come and I'm going to define some of these little flower areas with this a little more. So when I'm trying to talk about a flower in a loose way, I don't try to talk about each petal. I try to talk about the shape of the flower. So if there's a flower there, I might say, oh, there's a petal. There could be a petal, but it's very loose. Let's come here. Let's make one that's facing this way. So if I come here and I make a short stroke, my strokes might be closer together, but it's always going to be some variation of, an oval. Really? It's always going to be some variation of an oval. That's what we're doing. I just try to fill those in. It's good fun times for me. Like I might give this one a nice big red swatch for a closer petal. And so you can see how the brush strokes that I'm doing talk about these pieces more in their overall shapes than, say, their very specific little elements. And so there's big ones, and by what you highlight and what you put in shadow. I'm going to take some of these nice petals down here, because I think it's wonderful to, just like any flat floral, they drop petals, don't they? So I'm going to bring that down there. It's so bright, I literally need shades.
It really is cool.
It is really bright. I'm going to rinse that out. And while that's having a little bit of its own little rest, I'm going to go ahead and get some more of my greens. I'm just going to grab my yellow that already has this green in it, and I'm going to make sure that I'm filling up some of these spaces a little bit around the flowers with my green foliage. See how I'm doing? Like, no, foliage. Oh, I like that stroke right there. Even though I didn't have the original, I'm like, oh, I like it. So sometimes that'll happen. I'll be like, I like you too much. So this lime is just sublime. Yeah, lime. It's kind of like a lime color, and it just makes everything super happy, in my opinion. Now I can come along here and I can add a really interesting thing. Let's put out a little more white. Titanium white is always so fun. And we'll put out a little more of our yellow if we need it. I could see us leaning a smidge more yellow. I buy my cadmium yellow in the gallon size. But I only put out that much. I'm going to wipe my brush off a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and just get some of my white, and I'm going to put it into my brush. And I'm going to come and add a couple little spots right here coming out. And these are like little, if you think a little baby's breath. There we go. And I don't mind if there's sometimes even a little bit of yellow in my brush so that it's not the most white it's ever been. I can come here and see how these are like ducky yellow.
Yeah.
There. Let's add some of these here. Like, oh, you could be there. We're tucking little flowers in between the flowers that we have. And I can just tap if I want to make little bits. I can load up with more of the white that might have a little bit of yellow in it. Look, I'm going to tap here and fill in some of that space. Be a florist. If you were a florist, where would you put little sprigs? All right, I'm put a few out here of flowers. Right? Where would they tuck through? Where would they peek through? Would they peek through? I'm going to add a little bit more of this here. So there's just a little cluster. And so that's this stage. How do I peek these in? And where do I talk about these little elements? All right, so let's take that in for a second and see how that's doing. That's doing pretty well. I'm going to get just my white, and look how it is on my brush. It's pretty thick, isn't it? I'm going to go a couple places and add little loose highlights. So this is like the light catching this off yellow. I'm just putting that out. I'll rinse it out. Are we having fun?
Yeah, I think so. I'm enjoying it.
I'm going to grab some of my pure yellow and I'm going to even kind of thicken this up on this vase there.
I'm a little quieter today because I have
Because you're under the weather.
a little sinusiness.
I've got my little brush. It's all loaded up with yellow, and I'm going to come and just tap up a couple of things. These would be like the little yellow centers of some things that might be peeking out. You know how sometimes flowers have little yellow centers? And we're going to talk about those a bit. Oh, you have a little yellow centers, and then this could just be like, oh, I don't know, just sort of yellow off here. You can always just talk about those weird little yellow bits. Well, now our poppies look pretty happy, don't they?
Yeah.
Rinsing out. I'm going to wipe off.
A little happier.
A little happier, a little awesomer. So I'm going to get my yellow and a little bit of my red, and I'm going to make a very almost light orange. And I'm going to come on to some of the areas of my poppies. And I'm going to say this petal and this petal maybe. The top of this poppy could be highlighted, right? Maybe this one has a highlight here and this one has a highlight. Just mixing these little orange bits out. Say, oh, we're just talking about that orange part of the poppy. There we go. So you want to definitely still do things that you would do in any painting. You still want to have highlights. Right? You still want to have low values. You want to have pops of red. Right? So we are just picking the tops of our flowers and we're highlighting some of those petals. Well, now the tops of them have some highlights. I'll rinse this out. Now here's some tricky trick. I'm going to take a smidge, and I mean it's a smidge, of the Prussian, and I'm going to make that dark kind of burnt orange again. So just that dark burnt orange. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make sure that some of this underneath might have a couple little petals. Like I'm going to put a petal there, a little bit darker. Because you would want to have that, I'm going to grab some of my Just Red and I can put it a couple places, just very loose. Knowing that. So I've got my blue in there and I've got my Just Red, I've got my highlights, and they look pretty good. But they're not going to look like a loose poppy until we put in the centers. And again, I want this challenge to be, this is the beginning of you exploring this paint style. I want you to look at artists that work in this paint style. I want you to try your own photographs in this paint style and just release those conditions that you set for yourself where you say this is good or this is bad. And instead say, as long as I'm painting and trying and expressing and doing it again and seeing new things every time I do it, I'm winning. Like, put those as your conditions. All right, I'm going to get my little black on here. I'm going to put it just on the corner of my brush. And I'm going to go ahead and make a little black center right there in the center.
I like how the little black centers make them pop up.
It does, doesn't it? I'm going to take this. You could do your number 4 brush if you felt like you needed the thinner brush. Where I place the little black dot is also an indicator. So if you add that to where I've highlighted my poppy and what I've done, that tells you the direction that the poppy's facing. Because that's how poppies are. And if I put it back that way, that poppy's suddenly facing that way. But I could be like, oh no, this one's looking right at you and is full on, and maybe its little friend is, but this one could be over there. Maybe this one just has a little bit. Peek that right there in the distance so that they're barely popping out. Oh my gosh, look at us go. Now I'm going to really rinse this out, and I want to come and get just one last little zing. I just want to thicker and more intensely apply a couple reflections, right? So I'm going to make sure that I definitely have like a thicker, brighter white reflection there, because I think that's going to be really important to this feeling like glass. See, I'm adding that in. All right. Other than that, I think we did fairly well. And again, I have to resist the temptation to just go back and work it again and work it again and work it again, because that's what I want to do as an artist all the time. And I challenge you to resist the temptation to work it again and work it again and work it again. And then I ask myself the question, I know I had a signing brush over here, and all these brushes, you would think one of them would be a signing brush. They're not. I'm going to use this one.
Everybody's really enjoyed doing this with.
Has this not been just a lot of fun?
Been a whole lot of fun.
All right, well, I'm going to take my blue and my black, and I'm going to make just a nice dark color, but it's going to be kind of muted, and I'll work in the piece. I'm going to come over here to the corner, and I'm going to give myself just a nice little signature. We'll do some more of these little floral studies where we just loosen up and we just relax a little bit and we paint a little more expressively and worry more about colors and how they relate to each other and all the things that make art truly fun and enjoyable. I hope you get a fantastic result from this piece. I cannot wait to see you share them with me online. I want you guys to really just like let your wings and fly free and never be afraid to try something new. A lot of you said this is probably one of those things that looks easy but is really challenging. But I can't wait till you guys say, man, new techniques, they're exciting. And that's your whole thing. Like, I want to do something new. Just chomping your little teeth on that, getting ready to try something new. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I want to see you at the easel really soon. Bye-bye.